This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
You're listening to Beyond Bossfights, gaming conversations with interesting people. And now, here's your host, Raxwolf.
Hello, citizens. I'm shifting gears a little bit today, as my guest is both a gamer and accomplished independent filmmaker. In 2013, his feature film, The Rise of the Fellowship, gained international distribution and can be found everywhere from Netflix and Amazon to your local library. Since then, Ron Newcomb has worked on several upcoming ventures, including the kickstarted The Ranger series and a community filmmaking program designed to both involve more people in filmmaking and to ensure sustainability in order to embark on future projects. Ron and I also discuss how he was able to tap into the gaming community for his first feature film by using an MMO to attract the gamer audience in lieu of having access to A-list acting talent. But first, Local Wolf pays a visit to tell us about driving around San Francisco. Today on What Are the Kids Playing, I've got once again Local Wolf Storm Chaser, the oldest of my four, and he is going to talk to us today about what game?
The Driver San Francisco game.
Driver San Francisco, okay. Now, before we go on, some people I know might listen to this and they might hear some games for their kids. This is not really so much a game for kids, is it? This is rated. No. This is like a rated T game. Teen
for there is excessive language in it.
Okay, so just be forewarned, parents. Don't go out and get this for your 8-year-old. So this is a driving game, correct? Could you explain kind of what you're supposed to do in it?
I can explain the backstory. You're technically this undercover cop named John Tanner. You work for the San Francisco Police Department, and you're this guy Jericho. This whole thing is a revenge story, but Jericho's like this psychological maniac, but he doesn't act like it. He does mass suicide. Well, not suicide, but mass killings and whatever. Cop killer and whatever. So he's escaped from prison, and you're supposed to be trying to find him. So you're chasing him down in the very first level thing of the game, and he hits you into oncoming traffic, and a truck comes and totally destroys your car with you in it. It puts you in a coma, or John Tanner into a coma, and from that point on, the whole game is inside of his head. So he's imagining these things in his head.
Okay, is that a spoiler? Is that something that's not revealed?
No, you will find, you will figure that out. You will all...
right at the beginning?
Not at the beginning, but not at the end.
Okay, so slight spoiler there.
Slight, yeah.
So there's a story mode? This is what you're describing, right? The story mode?
Yeah, but there are other modes. There's like a split screen mode, there's online multiplayer, all that stuff. But the cool thing is, if you go into the story mode, you don't really have to do the story mode. You can do free drive, which is you just drive around and hop into different cars. Because you can do that, because it's in your head. You can hop into different cars, take over people's bodies, technically, and drive the cars.
Yeah, I've seen this mechanic. This was kind of a unique to a driving game. You can actually, the camera zooms out of the car that you're driving, and then it lets you pick another car on the road, and it zooms into that car like you just take it over, right?
Yeah, take the person who's driving it over anyway. But the cool thing is, only John sees himself. So if he looks like he's himself, and if he looks down, he'll see himself in his clothing. But if someone else looks at him, it's like the actual person who was taken over. And if John looks in the mirror, he'll see the person
right when you jump to a different car.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a split screen mode, and that's just so you're racing against somebody else?
There are different modes. You can do the co-op mode, where there are missions where you're supposed to be co-oping or whatever the words for that is, to get through levels. My favorite, survival mode. You're supposed to try to survive the cops as long as you can.
By survive, you mean evading the police?
Technically, I mean they're chasing you and you're trying not to get destroyed.
Oh, because there's a damage mechanic too.
Yeah, if you get too much damage, your car like just gets crashed.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a competitive mode where you are against the person in split screen. And then there's the free drive mode where you can just drive around and do whatever you want in a certain area of San Francisco.
Okay. Very cool. So tell me, what is the one thing that you would change about Driver San Francisco?
Well, what I would do is, I know you buy the cars, but then if you could upgrade them with aftermarket parts, that would be kind of cool. Upgrade their performance levels and all that kind of stuff, kind of like Midnight Club. If you had more racing, street racing, that'd be also kind of fun. Technically, if you just combine Grand Theft Auto, Midnight Club, Need for Speed, and Driver San Francisco, you'd have this.
What do you know about Grand Theft Auto?
I've played it once.
Okay.
It was kind of fun.
You're not going to play it again?
No. Not in this house. Probably not ever. It wasn't very fun.
So if you had somebody that you were trying to convince to play the game, what would you tell them?
Direct them to my video on YouTube.
There you go. A true salesman. Thank you, Logo Wolf. See you next time.
All right.
Today I have with me Ron Newcomb, who is an independent filmmaker with The Forge Studios, and he's got quite a gaming history and a gaming past here, and he also does all kinds of aspects of independent filmmaking, and he's agreed to be here with me today to talk about some of the things he's done in the past and also some of the things that he has planned for the future. Hello, Ron. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, talking about games, filmmaking, story, the whole kind of geek culture that we all love so much. So I appreciate you letting me blab on about that. I'm excited to be here to talk about it.
No problem. Yeah, it really dovetails really well. In fact, I'm part of a podcast network that has we just accepted a new podcast into the network that's called How Is This Movie? And it's all about filmmaking and the history of filmmaking and stuff like that. It's a really cool show. So I think there's a lot of crossover there for sure.
There really is, isn't it? It's just another way to kind of tell stories and how we all consume stories. That's part of, for me, gaming culture is being the hero and getting caught up in that. So definitely there's a lot of, it dovetails nicely into it.
So, Ron, you're a gamer yourself. Would you like to give the listeners a little bit of your definitive gaming history, like where you started gaming and what kinds of stuff that you do now?
Yeah, I definitely did. My first introduction, of course, was, like many of us, board games, then into role-playing games, and then it advanced on into, I can remember the first Atari that we bought, the Commodore 64, and working my way forward. But, real games that we consider kind of games in today's standard. Blizzard has always done a really nice job. So I was geeking out early on to World of Warcraft and what they had and their intellectual property and all the variations of story. So I definitely was geeking out to WoW for quite some time. And I've tried some levels of MMOs. I love the style of play, but I also love strategy games. So I'm a big strategy guy. So Age of Empires was certainly something I would tap into. But now finding myself with family and filmmaking and job and everything else, sometimes you just want to hop in and do a 20 to 30 minute game and hop out. So right now I'm geeking out to League of Legends has my fancy, because it's just enough. Although, as we all know in games, you can always mean to hop on and just do 20 minutes. Next thing you know, 2 hours later, you're still geeking out. But you get caught up in it. So, gaming is really the introduction to my creative process and creative story that I kind of fell in love with. So I give a lot of credit to my early days. I used to run off down to some neighbor's house and the Muirs, and we would geek out and play role-playing games a lot, and that got the creative juices flowing that ultimately would allow me to go into storytelling through the medium of film. So that's really how I got started.
Oh, that's a very cool tie-in there. Yeah, I hadn't made that connection before, but there is a lot of creativity involved with especially pen and paper RPGs that probably translates pretty well to things like storyboarding, I would imagine.
Yeah, we joke around a lot kind of in a geeky way and say that role-playing games are collective, collaborative storytelling. And it's true, though, isn't it? I mean, you all take on the persona of a hero. You're with a party, an ensemble cast, and you're going on to fight dragons with big adventures, high hope with treasure or saving the fair maiden or damsel in distress. And that can get you caught up in the romance of it all, of storytelling. So it really, role-playing really was the essence of what I got started. And I'm not the only one. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know that Vin Diesel wrote the foreword to the last version of Dungeons & Dragons that came out. And so he attributes a lot of his acting to his early days of playing role-playing games.
Oh, that's very cool. No, I wasn't quite aware of that. Like you said, probably some of my listeners are, but yeah, that is pretty cool. He doesn't exactly fit the old Dungeons and Dragons stereotype, does he?
No, he said he was a bouncer at night, and then he would run off and geek out with his buddies playing D&D, and it kept him grounded, out of trouble, and really flexed those creative muscles. So, if it's good for Vin Diesel, it's good for us.
Very cool. So we talked about gaming. How did you get into filmmaking?
Man, filmmaking was a process because when I first started, it really was through the love of acting that got me hooked. And we really weren't in the digital age like we are right now. So everything was still film. Digital was still kind of like, this isn't going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think I really had an opportunity to do digital filmmaking. So I packed my bags, moved to California, tried my hand at acting, and of course went right at the time of a small recession. Couldn't find a job anywhere, not even waiting table. So I came back and thought, man, I guess that's over. So that was right after the Marine Corps. I got out. And so I came back. My dad was a cop. My brother's a cop. So I became a police officer and loved it and thought, man, this is my career path. Until another cop buddy of mine, Jim Clock, said, hey, I'm going to do this movie. I went, what? So next thing I know, I find myself in a movie theater because we used to moonlight as security guards there. He had written a script in that venue. We started filming a film there. And I fell in love with it once again and realized, wow, man, we can do this. And there wasn't a lot of filmmaking going on out there. So I tried to get a hold of other people's projects and get involved. But it wasn't until I really pulled the trigger on my own stuff that I truly kind of threw myself into it and was like, no, I'm serious. I'm going to do filmmaking. When you first were to tell people that, they have this vision of you with your little handy cam going in your backyard, mm-hmm. just, filming your little brothers, that type thing. But once they saw the caliber of which I was talking about and I started to do some things, people go, wow, Ron's kind of serious about this. And I wouldn't ever say that I'm, ever done. I'm always in process. But I am definitely hooked. This is what I feel like I was called to do is to tell stories. So that's a little bit of how I got into it.
I think your first film, and correct me if I'm wrong, was Rise of the Fellowship.
That was definitely my first feature film that myself and my two business partners, Scott Mathias and Shane McClung with Opening Act Productions, had produced. That wasn't my personal first film that I was a part of. Because I had done my cop buddies film, My Turn, and then I'd done another couple's independent film, Wait Your Turn, kind of a name play there. And I had done some short films, but Rise of the Fellowship was the first film that I pulled the trigger on with my team, our funding, that type of thing. And we went on to get domestic distribution and worldwide rights. So you can find it on Netflix and Amazon and iTunes, and it was on the shelves of Walmart. And so it's done nice. And of course, our tie-in was, we couldn't afford like an A-list actor. So everyone asked, well, who's on your film? Who's in your film? And so the geek culture was really important to us. And that's our true fans. So we got permission to use the Lord of the Rings online video game in the film. And that became kind of our A-list talent. Mm-hmm. And so that was so much fun, awesome to work with. Your fans would appreciate these guys over at the company was called Turbine. It was bought out by Warner Brothers. Turbine's still around, but it's a Warner Brothers entity. They gave us our own server for Lotro, where they gave us these like godlike powers. We didn't have to die if we didn't want to. We could fly all over the map. They gave us all the cool, best gear to make our characters look really cool and represent the game and the film well. So it was awesome playing on those servers.
Yeah, I'm very actually familiar. I played Lotro for about 3.5 years, so that is where I got introduced to your films because I was playing the game. I was in that built-in audience that you were shooting for, which is kind of funny. I heard you say that on another podcast that I listened to actually, where you talked about, well, we don't have the budget for an A-list type of acting core, but we do have the ability to go out and get this intellectual property and use it. And there's an audience there that will come and watch. And it absolutely worked. I was there. I remember hearing about your film on a popular podcast, Casual Stroll to Mordor, at the time.
Love those guys.
Yep, they're fantastic. They're like Lotro royalty, by the way.
Absolutely.
They inspired me to get started as well in doing this.
Hey, cool.
So I guess my question about that was just to give the listeners kind of an overall understanding of what the film is about. There's a group of main characters that take a trip across country to try and get to a Lord of the Rings Online PvP tournament is basically what's going on there.
That's right.
Did you play Lotro at the time to get familiar with it, or what was your gaming aspect of doing that film? So
that was really cool because we kind of had the concept put down on paper in a skeleton format, but at the time, Lotro actually was not out yet. It had been announced that the game was in development, was being produced, and so we kind of banked on, without even having the rights yet, that we might be able to get the rights if we pitched it. People always ask me, how'd you get the rights? Well, it was easy. Once we went to Turbine and showed them a marketing opportunity. We didn't beg them so much to use their game, so much as we showed them a way to market their game in a different format, and they loved the idea. So that was something that we did early on, but the game wasn't even around yet when we were writing the script. But soon after it was released, and I pre-ordered that bad boy. It came in a nice red box. Turbine really treated us well. They gave us jackets, and they gave me a signed copy of the game in the original box. They were awesome. But at the time, I had pre-ordered the game. It came. I hopped on. And I like to create characters that kind of look like myself and, if I was back in that time type of thing. So I created a Rohirrim warrior. So I like just, sword and shield type of combat. I have a hard time holding back. I would definitely be Leroy Jenkins and just run in and, get the whole party wiped. But yeah, so I love Lotro. I mean, many of us are huge fans of what Tolkien did. And then to go in and play in the world of Middle Earth, are you kidding me? It was awesome. And the fact that, Lotro did such a good job at it, it's been a lot of fun to do. Yeah, and didn't you have, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I did some research in preparation for this, but some of it's gotten lost. Didn't you have at least a little bit of correspondence with Peter Jackson on this too? So in a far off way, I would say it's like 6 degrees to separation. So we used Peter Jackson, we used his name in the film. And so I just said, on the off chance, let's try to get permission to use his name. So I reached out to his company and his management staff, and I asked to use the permission of the game or his name in the film. And sure enough, we got permission. And he just said, the guy that was corresponding on behalf of Sir Peter Jackson, that as long as we use it in that context, we use it just for that stuff, and that he received a copy of the film, that we had permission to do so. So a cool little factoid is, if you look up Rise of the Fellowship on IMDb and scroll all the way to the bottom, or do this in reverse, look up Peter Jackson and scroll to his bottom, you will see Rise of the Fellowship attached to Peter Jackson, and that's ultimately how we did it. It was through his name. Now, I've since have gotten the film, have become somewhat online friends with Daniel Faulkner of What a Workshop. And so, that's like 1 degree from separation. Daniel's phenomenal if you're not familiar with his artistry and craft. He's on a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff for Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And so I've gotten stuff into his hands, and he's really been a huge encouragement. He was really impressed with what we did with the Rangers, our latest fantasy, and has given us a lot of good words, and motivation to keep going. I mean, these guys are at a huge caliber level, and it was very Hobbit-like of what Peter Jackson and his team with Weta took on. Here these guys are off on an island. Everyone said they couldn't do a Hollywood level film, and didn't they prove everybody wrong? I mean, how cool.
Back to the Rise of the Fellowship. We'll talk about the Rangers in a second, because I want to hit on that movie too.
Sure.
But with Rise of the Fellowship, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns, was it? Now, didn't you have some distribution issues with that film? And what were kind of the high and low points of creating that film?
Well, it's always a challenge in the medium that we've chosen to go into business with. It's always trying to say, okay, how can we monetize this? Again, nobody's going to get fat and rich and retire off of it, but you just want to make enough money to do the next film, And so you start to look at the way the film industry is going, and it's extremely difficult to figure out. To give you an example, our film is on Netflix. Well, a lot of people have told me, yeah, I've seen your film. I saw it free on Netflix. Well, Netflix isn't free. They're paying $7.99, right, to their cable provider. But is Ron Newcomb getting any of that money? Very, very, very little bit, because it goes to our distributor and on it goes, down to the percentages of us finally getting a little bit. And it's extremely difficult also to break into an international market and have an international appeal, especially because, things and events of the world that happen affect industry markets. So what's going on, like, for instance, in the Middle East, and things can affect sales and to certain aspects. And a lot of people feel like, well, if you don't have a theatrical release, then you don't have a viable film. You have a straight to it used to be straight to DVD type of movie. Now it's straight to VOD. But that doesn't always mean a fail. Right now, going into the on screen into theaters really serves as a giant commercial to show viability for your film. And so it really needs to be looked at a little differently. But there's always challenges, always challenges. I read certainly an interesting article the other day that, Peter Jackson said that you never fully finish a film. You just kind of run out of time. I mean, I heard he was editing The Hobbit up to the day he was supposed to deliver, or rather the Lord of the Rings. And I've also heard that anybody should win an Oscar just for completing a film. Because most people, I've talked to a lot of people, and they say, yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I'm saying, really? What film did you do? And they are called what I call film enthusiasts. They go, well, I never really have done a film. I'm just, I like to dabble. And not to take anything away from what they're doing, but to esteem those people that have seen a feature film through. There's so many hurdles in a film. I like to describe it as you're birthing a film forward. It will fight you every step of the way, and it's your job as the producer to pull it into life. And certainly every film I've ever done has had its challenges, and Rise of the Fellowship certainly did. And, another thing that we've done is marketing is always a huge challenge now as well. If you ever want to know how people can be, just do a video and throw it up on YouTube and watch the comments come in. You'll you'll never be a filmmaker again, because people are everybody feels the need to be critical and to critique. And, that's not always for the artist. Putting themselves out there isn't always the most healthy thing, to be going through all those little comments. So certainly projects can have their challenges.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the wider spread your target demographic or your target market there, the more of that you're going to see as well.
Yeah.
Funny story, actually. We were in the library last week, and we typically do a really quick run through the movies there just to see. They've got a DVD section, and I pulled Rise of the Fellowship off the shelf, and I turned it around and pointed at your name on the back, and I told my wife, this is who I'm interviewing next week. And she was actually pretty impressed by that. So
nice. Very, very cool.
Yeah, funny little thing there. So Rise of the Fellowship, got it in the can, got it distributed. Took you a few years, but we got there. And in fact, it seems to be, from the uneducated observer, quite a decent success. You're on Netflix, you're on the library, you're in Walmart. Explain to me why you changed your approach to go with a Kickstarter for the Rangers.
It's all about, so Rise of the Fellowship seems like it's kind of an overnight success, if you will, right? It just, we put it out there, boom, it's doing well. And I agree. We're loving seeing how far it can go. But that was a very long process. From the moment of concept, that was back in 2007 when we first started this journey. So to think now it's 2015, if you do the math, I'm only going to be able to do like 2 or 3 more films in my lifetime. Right. before it's all said and done. So I said, man, I need to speed this process up. And the biggest hurdle that we have as filmmakers, unfortunately, is financial. And so this medium of crowdfunding, being able to go to the fans and they can decide if they greenlight a project or not, it's actually a pretty interesting thing for a business person to do, because you have a concept and this validates and proves your concept before you ever pull the trigger on any type of footage for the most part. And so I thought, we're not going to be able to do the raise that I was able to do for Rise of the Fellowship quite yet, but maybe we can go to the fans and see if they will allow us to do it. So to me, it was a twofold. It wasn't just the money, although that extremely was helpful, but it really was about the mobilization of the fans. Because if you put your film out on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, all these different places, Walmart, they own the fans. I don't know who my fans are. I can't engage them. I can't have conversations with them. And I wanted to have this fan engagement. That was very important to me. So doing it this way, it allowed the fans to chime in, but it also gave them a voice and a seat at the table with the Ford Studios, if you will. So it allows that fan interaction where I actually can now communicate with the fans directly. And to me, that was extremely important to do. So that was kind of the other selling point for me.
Very cool. So as far as the approach, do you think that was more of a success from that standpoint? Obviously, you got more engagement from it, but from even a financial standpoint and an approach standpoint, do you think that it was more successful than the first time you made the Rise of the Fellowship?
It was. I would say it's different, because Rise of the Fellowship, what I loved about that is that we had a bigger budget. And we were able to do more. We were able to shoot more. You were able to take your time and get the shots you want. I mean, originally with the Rangers, it was the expectation that we would do 20 to 30 minutes. And now we've gotten more of that. So with Rise of the Fellowship, I love the ability of time and scale, and the fact that if we wanted to do something and we had it in the budget, then we could pay for it to do it. With the Rangers, with crowdfunding, you're still having to do a lot of begging and borrowing and pulling in favors. And not that that's a bad thing, but it's not a sustainable thing. So from a business model perspective, it's a good proof of concept. It's great to get fan engagement. I'm not saying I won't do it again, but it's not the long-term goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of conversations about Kickstarter when it comes to gaming as well. So there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, and it kind of depends on who you ask, which they prefer.
Yeah. Yep, agreed.
So I know the Rangers is in post-production right now. Are you ready to give some kind of a tentative release date on that, or have you given one? No,
we have not yet, but I can tell you that we are tracking to, no filmmaker ever wants to draw a line in the stand for, the same quote as Peter Jackson. You don't want that time element to be against you. But we're tracking right, and I believe we are. Our CGI team is working hard. It's going to be August, September timeframe. So not too far away. Okay. Obviously, we put the trailer out there. That's gotten a lot of traction, about 180,000 hits overall collectively. But I am so excited about this. Originally, we had about 16 CGI elements. When it's all said and done, we went from thinking we had 20 minutes to where we now have 60 minutes of footage. We have over 245 CGI shots in this. So it's a huge undertaking. I'm working with 14 individual CGI artists from all over the world, Germany, local, Canada. And, how cool is that? What type of unique opportunity. We live in a time and age where you don't need to be living right next to the person that you're working with. You can pull in this international appeal. And it's a lot of people that have the same passion and affinity as you. So it's been a really, really cool and fun ride.
Now, the Rangers, just the title kind of evokes a lot of Tolkien-esque imagery. Is that where you got a lot of your inspiration for this film?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, it didn't end with Rise of the Fellowship. What Tolkien created and kind of unleashed in many of us, this fantastical element, really drew something forward from me, as a man and different things. It was that scene and what Peter Jackson depicted so well in the film when we first are introduced to Strider, and he's sitting over in the corner, and we all remember it, the cloak pulled low, you can only see the bottom of his chin, and he puffs on that pipe, and it illuminates his eyes. And I thought, who are those guys? Who are the Rangers? Being a Marine and a police officer, you have that kind of elite group, that core fighting group, and I thought, man, who are the Rangers? The Dunedain, the Men of the North, and all these things. But obviously, I didn't want to just pull off from Tolkien. I started to fantasize about what that might look like in a creative world and why would they be needed. And so all these things I pulled from all the elements of story that I had from early back in my role-playing days to all the many books that I've read and other stories that I've heard. But that's where it began. That was the essence of the Ranger. I worked with a guy that played Baba Melvin in Rise of the Fellowship, this really wonderful character that we created, and that he portrayed so well in the film. It was a lot of fun. I knew I wanted to work with him. The actor's name is Wolf J. Sherrill. And I knew I wanted to do a legit, true, taken serious fantasy. And so with those things beginning to pull forth, you then depict that Strider character in the back of my mind. And I said, man, it can't be just the one Ranger. And again, I wasn't going down a path of what Tolkien had created, the Men of the North, and I knew that essence, but I wanted to develop story around my own idea. And so we began to pull forward, what does that world look like? So you have world creation, and you have, we've had several conversations of what monsters do they have there, what animals, what language, what weather elements, all these different things you have to create around that. And as a creative, and I'm sure as a gamer, that's so much fun. That's the essence of what we love.
So what is the Forge Studios? Because this was a new term to me as of a few weeks ago. Is this something that you guys just spun up, or has it been around for a while?
It has not been around for a while. It's something we just spun up. It was Opening Night Productions was about creating feature films, and that's what that company was set out to do, and is still striving. But the Forge Studios allows us this other building block to be able to create several different layers of intellectual property underneath that, because you can't just be a filmmaker these days. We've also created a really, really cool card game. We've created a miniatures line that we developed and continue to develop. We're currently developing the novel of the Rangers. So it's all the different ways, different mediums that are being pulled together to tell story. And it's called transmedia, this transmedia approach. So how many ways can you get your story out to the public to consume and for them to tell their own tales and their own stories? So that's what the Forge is looking to do, and why it was created. That's a little bit different than what Opening Act Productions' original intent was. Okay,
so that's interesting, because there's a lot of, from a business perspective, obviously you're thinking of cross-promotion opportunities, but from a kind of a fan perspective, you're also thinking of enriching the world with all kinds of different approaches to this world, right?
Absolutely. It's exactly what they did with Tolkien. We have the books, we have the game, we have the films, we have the cartoon. There's so many different elements. I mean, any of your fans out there, if they're independent game developers, we're looking. You know what I mean? I mean, this is for fans by fans type of thing, where we're putting in sweat equity in hopes that we all get to do this for the rest of our lives. And if we want to get as many people in the boat as we can. So we're an engaging group. One of the things we've done out of the Forge Studios is created a film program where people can be involved in film, and you don't need to live in the DC metro area where I live. Just like I was explaining, you can do post things anywhere in the world. We're getting ready to shoot our next sci-fi steampunk western called Outlawed Faith the weekend of May. And we're trying, again, if people wanted to come out on set, never been on a set and they're in my area, come on. We'd love to have you.
Very cool. Yeah, that sounds like a really cool concept as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do with that. I just wanted to ask if you had learned anything from your previous filmmaking experience that led to the formation of The Forge.
Yeah, it's really trying to keep my pulse on the industry to figure out where it's all going. Right now you're only going to see these kind of major blockbusters because these studios have taken risk on other films and they haven't done so well. So they need to engage intellectual properties or IPs that are known entities that are also known successes. That's why we're in the age of comics and things like that. And every once in a while, they'll take a risk and they'll do an original story and try things. But their risk threshold has shrunk. But that's given the opportunity for independents to really step up. So one of the things that I think that I've learned the most, and I really do try to hone in on, is the business side of filmmaking. Where is it going? Where is content being consumed? How is it being consumed? And then how can... And again, I hope this comes off in the spirit of which it is given, but how can it be monetized? Again, not in a way that we can all sit fat and pretty and retire, but in a way that we all get to do this bigger, better, create more content.
That sustainability is required.
Sustainability, yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
So you've alluded to this a little bit already, but did you want to talk about any of the films that you've got planned for the future?
Yeah, so we are in this film program. We are trying to do one film a quarter, anything that we can film, several different genres, but our main genres, our niche that we're trying to carve out for ourselves is fantasy and sci-fi with a slant towards fantasy. But we just recently were accepted into the GI Film Festival for a short film that we did called C'est la guerre, which is a World War II film. So we're not excluding any other genres. We want to do creative story. Now, what I've done in the film program is generally you can film 5 pages a day. And so we try to film over 2 days. I say, hey, if you can give us 1 weekend, that's what we're looking for. So a total of 10 pages, which generally translates to about 10 minutes of film. Now, we have bigger aspirations for bigger projects, including Rangers 2, which we'd like. Rangers is a pilot episode that we hope gets picked up as a series. And we can go do this on one of the many online outlets that wants an original series, like on Netflix or an Amazon or Hulu or Crackle or any of the other entities like that. That would be the ultimate goal. But we do have plans for Rangers 2. We also have plans for another feature film. So those things are possibilities in the future. Nothing that's too solid yet. We don't want to get too far down the road with not having the Rangers finished, but we do have big plans and big aspirations. And then we want to do creative storytelling in all the various mediums, to include video games and, board games. We have a board game being developed as well. And so, yeah, I'm excited about the opportunity that's before us. But I will say that I've never felt more like the timing is now. Like the studios are getting whim of the distribution methodology that is being used today, and they're buying up stuff. And if we don't watch it, this content creator connection with the fans, we're going to lose once again. And that's very important to me, is to stay connected to the fan base. But, people like me, the true independent filmmakers, can't do it unless the fans support them. Mm-hmm. So, that fan engagement is vital to our existence.
So when I noticed as I was perusing the Forge Studios website that one of the slogans on it is, "They said we couldn't, and we said watch us." And I wanted to ask, is that a commentary on the current state of the entertainment industry and specifically the filmmaking aspect of it?
That's exactly right. I mean, there's the fun term that we all talk about, haters are going to hate. There's always going to be people telling you why you can't or why you shouldn't. And that's that kind of first part of it. And then the other one is that double kind of play on words, is not only watch us as in watch our stuff, but then watch us do it. Life is being lived by those out at the tip of the spear, in the forefront, doing things, bypassing all the people telling you all the reasons why you can't. And we have a great opportunity now as independent filmmakers if we would just come together. I feel like Mel Gibson in Braveheart, when he went to Robert the Bruce and said, "Unite the clans." If we would just unite, what that force would be. What story could we tell? What story couldn't we tell if we did it together? And that's what we're trying to set out to do. And I am, I'm extremely passionate about it. Yeah, I'm an all-in kind of guy. This is what I've been developing now for years. I work a full-time job, have a family with 3 little girls, and I come home and I stay up till 11, 12 o'clock just about every night working on this stuff, dreaming about this stuff, and trying to get people engaged. To give you a perspective of, how many people are you talking about getting involved? I mean, we probably have close to 24 new people coming out to the shoot that haven't done filmmaking in the past before, that are going to get an opportunity to come out and try it out and get involved and have some fun. So, that saying was really us trying to say that we are going to be doers, not just talkers.
I want to give you a few minutes to talk about what you're trying to get going with the Forge Studios from a community involvement standpoint, because Kickstarter was kind of the first step, as you mentioned, where the community can they can give you money for the project and you can interact with them. But the Forge really takes it one step further, this program that you're trying to get going. Could you explain what it is that you're trying to do with your community?
Yes, and it's quite simply is that many of us have forgotten that we are creators, that we are creative, and that we can create. When we were all in kindergarten, and if I would have asked, how many artists do I have in the room, every hand would have went up. But by the time we got to seniors in high school, there would only be about 2, maybe 3 people tops in the probably whole school that would raise their hand. And we need to be reminded that we are creators, and we don't want you to sit on the sidelines. We want to invite you in the process. We want to invite you in the process. We have a way for you to submit screenplays, story ideas, and the film program is the time to try things out. Now, when we're doing a feature and things, that's not the time to try things out, right? Mm-hmm. We're going for the business side. But with the film program, that is always going to slant towards the individual, the people. It's not going to be business above people, not in the film program. And in hopes that we develop, we inspire and encourage others so that when we get to do the bigger projects, we have an elite group that is ready to move forward together. And that's really the heart and the essence of what it is that there's a lot of people that I've met that all of a sudden I see the glint in their eye, that they're reminded that they had a story when they were young that they started, and somewhere along the way, they've lost that glint. Someone probably told them it wasn't quite that good, and so they just let it go. And I want to remind you that you are a creator and that you can create, and to get back involved, to jump back in, and this is the way to do that. So that's what the Forge is all about. That's what the Forge Film Program is trying to provide opportunities and an outlet for people to do. So we're hoping that together we can. That's kind of a hashtag that we've created, Together Filmmaking, because together we can.
So specifically, what can somebody do if they're interested in getting involved in filmmaking with the Forge?
So under our film program, we do have membership that you can buy. We have 3 different levels, gold, silver, and bronze. And depending on what you want to do, very much a la Kickstarter style, where you have different reward levels. There are things that you get for each level. So you can get behind the scenes access, you can get on site access, you can get early screeners, you can get access to us directly and things like that. Or if you just wanted to do the one-off membership for this particular project. So, for instance, our next project, like I said, is called Outlawed Faith. You can put in $25 and we'll invite you on set to be in front of the camera or behind the camera, whatever your choosing is. Now, we do have different levels of where you're at. We never want to put somebody ahead of where they are. If you aspire to be a camera operator and you don't have much experience, obviously we wouldn't put you there first. We try to treat our sets extremely professional, and so we want to groom you up to that position, but that's the goal. Now, and some people will say, I'm sure, well, that feels like I'm buying my way in. Well, you don't have to put in $25. You can bring a $25 value add to it. So if you have a cool location or props, or you want to bring food, you can do those things. It really stemmed from my World War II project, where I had a guy ask me, hey, can I help out? And I said, hey, would you mind helping out and buying breakfast. And he didn't realize how much of a huge help that was. One of the questions a lot of us filmmakers ask is, why am I not filming every weekend? Well, the huge one is it's expensive. Even for a small little tiny thing, it's expensive. To give an example, it's costing us $500 just for insurance for 2 days. It's going to cost us $300 just for food. That's $800. That's only 2 items. Plus, we're doing a steampunk sci-fi fantasy. You can see where it can get expensive. So if we were to eliminate that expense, that allows us to be in production more, which frankly is the fun of it. But we don't want to just do production. We want to finish. Like I said, the short film C'est la Guerre has already been accepted into the GI Film Festival. So we are trying to do it at that high caliber level that will pay dividends when we're ready to pull the trigger on the bigger projects. So they can hop on our site. They can join us on Facebook. Of course, we're on Twitter, Pinterest, all those other arenas, but engage with us. Facebook is generally where we do a lot of our discussions, but you can also become a member and you get certain privileges into the site as well from there. Or you can just do the one-off, or you can just donate. If you're like, man, this guy sounds like, he's going for it, I want to help him out, you can just donate there as well. And I use the word donate loosely. We're not a nonprofit, so you're not getting a tax write-off. But this is true independent filmmaking. And then we are, like I said, looking to develop further aspirations of true business opportunities with a specific ROI return, and are going to be kind of pounding the drum again for investors and potentially another crowdfunding campaign. So right now we're loving what we're seeing with the Rangers, and we need to play that out a little bit to see where distribution might take us. But we are going to forge ahead, and we hope that as we can, we can get as many people in the boat as we can.
Well, it certainly is an innovative approach to community filmmaking, and I salute you trying to do this, and I really hope that it works out well. I'm thinking about helping out a little bit.
Awesome, man. Come in and get involved. And again, we can all think outside the box, like what that might look like if you don't live around here. How we can get involved, and how we can all mobilize. Then we're not the only ones in our area doing this. There's other groups all over doing things that, if we just mobilize, we can tap into, and we can have little projects going on all over the place. I'm just a representative of a conglomerate and a team of people that are doing that. And I think that's important to say. It's not me. There's plenty of other people, specifically 2 guys that have been helping out a ton. Skip Lippman and Jerry Mosmack are my buddies in the trenches with me that are on a lot of the videos and stuff that we put out. But we are sincere and honest in our efforts and our attempts to try to do this together.
Just a couple things to update everybody on. Wanted to mention real quick that if you follow the Gaming and Entertainment Network, the network that this podcast is a part of, you might have noticed that recently a couple of the shows that are regulars on that network have stopped producing. Well, this is true. Roleplay Domain and Massive Failure, both produced by Joseph, the MMO troll, have stopped updating, and that's because Joseph has retired from podcasting. So I wanted to let everybody know that those shows are going to be moved to a retired shows section of the website. I wanted to also thank Joseph for everything he's done for the network. He's the only one that's ever done 2 weekly shows for the network, and I just can't even imagine what kind of energy that takes to do that. So thank you, Joseph, for everything you've done. It's been awesome listening to your podcasts, and we wish you well. Also wanted to mention that this month, May, is the Newbie Blogger Initiative, the 4th iteration of this. And if you don't know what this is, it's basically a community event for games bloggers that gets them all together, the more experienced bloggers with the people who either aspire to be games bloggers or those who have just recently started, and kind of promotes a mentor-mentee relationship. It also gives us the opportunity to do some social things together as far as gaming is concerned. And it also provides an avenue for communication and advice if that's what's desired. If you've been listening to this show for at least a year, you'll know that last year I was a newbie blogger. And this year I'll also be participating, but in more of a kind of mentory role. I don't know if I'm going to be real involved because my personal life schedule is also very busy at the moment. What I would like to do is see the Gaming and Entertainment Network step up as kind of like a podcast mentoring network for people who are interested in trying this type of medium out. Sometimes it's even more intimidating to try and start a podcast than it is to try and start a blog. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely get in contact with us via newbiebloggerinitiative.com. There's a forums there that you can sign up for and get your name out there. Make sure your desire is known, and we will definitely hook you up with somebody who can help you out, give you advice, and maybe even have you as a guest on the show to try it out. Along those same lines, I wanted to mention that we just released a TGen Tribunal, our second one, a couple of weeks ago, and Roger Edwards, myself, and Islane from Couch Potatoes were on that tribunal talking about the Newbie Blogger Initiative. So if you want to know a little bit more detail about that event, check out TGen Tribunal 2 over at the Gaming and Entertainment Network website. And speaking of Couch Potatoes, that is our featured TGen show of the week. So I'm going to go ahead and let Izzy take it away.
Hello, podcast listener. My name is Islane, and I'm the host of Couch Potatoes. Joined by my co-host Jewel, we take an unfiltered look at the gaming world, featuring viewpoints and opinion from all corners of the globe. We talk about what we've been playing, news and social issues that surround the industry, make fun of idiots on the internet, and highlight folks from our blogging community. Couch Potatoes is a weekly podcast with new episodes releasing each Friday. You can find our show at couchpotatoes.libsyn.com. We are also a member of TGen, otherwise known as the Gaming and Entertainment Network, where you'll find a multitude of high-quality shows. TGen can be found at tgenetwork.net. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy gaming.
So for feedback, I don't have any feedback this month to speak of, so we'll just kind of breeze by this. But if you do have some, please send it to braxwolf@gmail.com, and I'll read it on the podcast if that be your wish. This is also a reminder that Beyond Bossfights is on iTunes and would appreciate your ratings and reviews. I haven't had one in a while. I'd like to hear what you guys are thinking. I don't want to shout into a deep dark hole here. Beyond Bossfights is also on Stitcher and Player FM, so add it to your playlists on those apps as well. Now, Ron, I'm going to throw it to you here to go ahead and give your contact information. How can people get a hold of you to either get in contact with you or learn more about what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. Well, of course, the easiest is going to be theforgestudios.com. You can go on our website. Anybody can email me directly. It's ron@oapfilms.com is the easiest way. But you can also look me up on Facebook or LinkedIn. It's Ron Newcomb, Newcomb. And then, like I said, we also have all the other periphery sites that one would think of, YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr, so you can hop on there as well. And like I said, don't just be passive and see what we're doing. Get involved and engage us. We loved that feedback and the opportunity to do this together.
And as for me, you can get a hold of me at Twitter at Braxwolf, that's BRAXWOLF. You can email me at braxwolf@gmail.com. I'm on a Nook, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find me on all of those sites. And you can always visit my blog at braxwolf.com. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ron. And we'll see you next time.